Hey Squishies! Welcome back for another vlog. This is Ducktales, Season 2, Episodes 12 and 13, Nothing Can Stop Della Duck, and Something Doomsday Vault. This is another good pair of episodes, though it kind of peaks at the start. The cold open and the first scene of episode 12 are some of the best, most emotionally affecting stuff this series has done. The timing surrounding the gag, Della not yet being adjusted to Earth gravity, and then her fretting in front of the front door about what to say upon seeing her family for the first time in a decade. That's simultaneously very funny stuff, but also real pathos. Like, there's real emotion there that we can connect to. The awkwardness, the fear, the hesitation, but also the hope and anticipation. She wants the moment to be perfect, and she's fretting over that. And then we switch to the other side of the door, and the nephews and Scrooge about to go on this great new adventure with this amazing magical quill, and then they open the door, and there she is, and Scrooge drops the quill and shatters it. And we never care about that quill at all, ever again, because even though it was, supposed to be their greatest adventure yet, who cares? Della is here. And that's just a great little moment. It really gets to what the show is about. I mean, it's taking a lot of the stuff that the old DuckTales did with adventure and treasure hunts and all that kind of stuff, but the heart of the show is the family. And this is a piece of that family that was missing for so long, and has been built up so much as something that was missing, that we share in Della's anticipation. We want this moment to be perfect, but for us, it's really funny, the degree to which it's not. And then, I mean, her and Scrooge are cute, but they're two people who've known each other for a long, long time, seeing each other after a long, long separation, and immediately falling back into old patterns. That's a real thing, and that's affecting, but it's not what we have been waiting for, which is her to reunite with her children. And it's really interesting and well done how that plays out. The way they're hiding behind Webby, but Huey and Dewey are leaning out from behind her, like simultaneously hesitant and eager, while Louie is much more detached, much more pulled back. He's at the rear, and he's fully behind Webby. He's frightened by this, because Louie is the liar, the trickster, and as a direct corollary to that, he is the most suspicious of the boys. He's the one who is always questioning everything that happens. And so when we see him confronted with his mom, like, this is the first time I've given a shit about Louie in the entire series. He's kind of the worst, as, Susan has pointed out repeatedly in our reaction videos. He's the worst. But he's also he's also a kid, and he's got these complicated feelings around his mom, and he has the same thing that Huey and Dewey are doing, where he wants it to be real, but he's scared. And he deals with that by denying that it's real. Because better to deny it than to trust it and be disappointed. That would be too much pain for him. And that tells us a lot about Louis. That gives us possibly more insight to him than we have had in the entire series up to now. Because what that shows us is someone whose tricks and guardedness are and have always been a defense mechanism because he doesn't trust himself to deal with being disappointed, with being hurt. Yes, he is genuinely greedy, but he's also scared and keeps his distance from others because of that. And the way in which he maintains that distance is in being manipulative. So Huey and Dewey fling themselves directly into Della's embrace, but it takes Louis a moment to accept. And with Dewey and Huey, we just get humor. We get Dewey's delightfully inane, I always knew I was part robot. We get Huey and Della reciting bits of the Woodchuck Manual. Like, we get to see how each of them finds some of themselves in her, and she finds some of herself in them. And that immediately makes it possible for them to connect, at least superficially, and begin building the familial connection that they've never really had but always wanted. It's a powerful scene. And I don't want to move on from it without also discussing the handling of the prosthesis. Now, I'm not an expert on disability. I have some chronic illnesses, but nothing that requires prosthetic. So it's entirely possible that I'm missing something, but to me this seems like a scene that really handles it with grace. It is, Scrooge is momentarily taken aback when he sees that she's got a prosthetic leg, but immediately shifts gears to praise her ingenuity in creating it. Same with Huey and Dewey. Dewey latches onto it as something that makes her cool. She's a cyborg. And Louis wants... How do I put this? Not Louis, sorry, Huey. Huey has questions about it. But those questions are immediately put aside when he finds that woodchuck, when they lead to that woodchuck guidebook connection between him and his mom. And the leg comes back in the climax that Della both uses it to save the day and has to abandon it to save herself, is very interesting because the leg is the most visible and permanent reminder of her decade on the moon. And her using it to save the day is part of that. Like, she has learned and grown on the moon, and she is able to use that to help the family. At the same time, she's got to leave it behind, at least temporarily. She's got to be able to let go of it when necessary, in order to live after this, frankly, probably really traumatic experience. She has to be able to both use it when needed and leave it in the past when that's needed. So this opening scene on either side of the opening credits is essentially the whole episode in microcosm, which is a nice little bit of structuring. Because the entire episode is essentially her seeking ways to connect to the family, her seeking her place in the family, and trying to figure out what that is and trying to learn what that is. And it's Scrooge, who of course spent the whole first season with exactly that process, learning how to be part of a family again, who recognizes that what she needs is time and space. She needs space to make mistakes and time to learn from them, and only in that way can she relearn how to be part of a family and learn how to be part of this specific family, which is not identical to the one she was in before. It's exactly what he had to spend the first season doing, and that's why he's able to recognize that. So it's a good episode. It's able to get a lot of humor from the little disasters that are created by Della's attempts to fit in, but it never loses sight of the emotional core of what's going on. And that's kind of the mark of a good cartoon, really. In this subgenre, the for lack of a better way to put it, comedy adventure with a heart subgenre that encompasses a lot of the best cartoons of the 2010s. This, Gravity Falls, Adventure Time, Steven Universe. Adventure Time being a curious case because it evolved from a pure gag show into this kind of comedy adventure with a heart. Comedy adventure that's got a strong focus on character, feelings, and relationships. To contrast with something like a pure action superhero cartoon, which has dramatically less comedy and character relationship stuff in it. Like the old Ducktales, which had a little more comedy than something like, Batman the Animated Series, but it was still primarily focused most of the time on adventure. Whereas this has a more varied pool of registers that it can employ. And mix and match in interesting ways. So, for example, we follow up this episode, which was kind of feelings first, then humor and adventure as distant seconds. Or honestly, humor is a distant second and adventure third. To whatever it was, Doomsday Vault, which is much more of an adventure with an emotional core and a gag-heavy B-plot. Which I really enjoyed. I really love the degree to which the new series does not take Glomgold at all seriously. He is almost a pure comedy relief villain, which is why I'm really looking forward to what they do with him in the remainder of the season based on the trailers we've seen. Because it looks like, I guess spoilers for what the trailers have suggested, but it looks like he's going to be leading a sort of Legion of Doom. And I find that a very entertaining possibility just because, all the villains have their quirks in this show, but he is so ineffectual. And so just ridiculous with his single-minded obsession on beating McDuck. That it just makes him so much fun. To the point that he's not even really the antagonist of this episode. This episode doesn't really have an antagonist except sort of Von Drake and the defenses he gave his seed vault. Which, I mean, I think that's worth acknowledging that, first of all, Doomsday Seed Vault is a real thing. And the fact that they are open about its, climate change that is threatening the Seed Vault and requiring enhancements to it that McDuck is planning to pay for, that's kind of a big deal. Because it is, again, a departure from the old cartoon, which, while very good, was a very libertarian Reagan 80s show. It was not a show that would acknowledge climate change. It was extremely conservative in its core attitudes. It managed to be a good show anyway, but the new show, while it struggled with some elements of the legacy of the old show, most notably the colonialist attitudes that are kind of inherent to the adventure archaeology genre, this is really pushing back against, as it has done many times, against the kind of greed is good, I got mine, screw you, that epitomized the 80s. This is very much a shit, we screwed up and we gotta fix some stuff or we're not gonna survive the apocalypse. Also, there's gonna be an apocalypse. Like, that's just kind of taken as a given. Very interesting thing for a children's show to do on a political level. And, of course, something I appreciate because we did screw shit up and we do need to fix it, and we probably are headed for an apocalypse. Such is the nature of being alive in the early 21st century, I guess. So interesting that that's now permeated down to the level of children's shows. Of course, they make the apocalypse a little silly. The Seed Vault has vampire repellents, and the defense mechanisms include a color-coded thing to prevent werewolves. Excuse me. But when it kind of comes down to it, it's still taking as a given that the apocalypse is coming and that it's connected in some way with climate change. I think that's about all I gotta say on these two. Solid pair of episodes. And there's some really good stuff to come, I know. Because I've already seen everything that's aired to date. I just haven't been able to vlog it. But yeah, I think that's about it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, essays, let's plays, and more. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!